Hello friends, welcome back to the Daniel-Mabry project. I am currently in Dillon, Colorado, as you can see. I going snowboarding up here. Be here for a couple weeks before I venture over to Utah, so if you're in the area, feel free to reach out. This episode is with Ernesto Diaz Jr. and Madison Bottoms, two guys I knew from college, and they started their own podcast, and a couple of them, I guess. And I was in the Dallas area and wanted to get them on, and I knew we'd have a lot to talk about, a lot of stories to swap, and that's pretty much what we did. We just kind of swapped stories and talked about college and our opinion on things and how, things influenced us now and where we're headed now. And it was really fun. Obviously, it was almost like 2 hours long, and it just really never stopped. So I had a really good time, and those guys kind of inspired me to pick up this thing and do it myself. And I am forever grateful for them and respect those guys a whole lot. Ernesto, just his outgoing personality, and Madison, the fact that he chose to be a teacher and take on the youth of our future. It's something that I don't think I could ever get behind myself, but everybody has a different personality. So, but yeah, if you want to support this podcast, if you want to support me, the easiest way to do so is to subscribe and like this video, share it with a friend. If you find monetary value in it, I do have a Patreon page, and my Venmo is always open. So enjoy the podcast, and I'll see you guys next week. Recording, so just know that.
Okay. So do you just jump straight into it, or do you?
Yeah. It's like I said, there are no rules here. I generally do an intro like before the actual podcast starts, so we'll just jump into it.
Okay.
Today is Sunday, the 26th, January 26th. I don't generally try to start the podcast off like this, but like an hour ago, Kobe Bryant died. So,
R.I.P.
R.I.P. to Kobe.
Yeah.
That being said, Ernesto Diaz Jr. and Madison Bottoms here on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure, guys. I'm pumped to have you. Just gonna put these on, check some sound for a second. Both these guys have had a podcast before, started a podcast before. Did y'all change names, or just one, or was there two?
Well, we started off.
Yeah.
We were our first podcast was called "A Word" with Ernie and Madison.
Yeah.
And then we had creative differences on what our fan base should be called.
Okay. All right. I'm with you. That is a struggle, though. I mean, that's.
I think the struggle was just internally with Ernie.
Well, I didn't think that we'd be able to expand with O Word, so then we decided to change our name to
Reaching Out, but then once we changed, it kind of faded out.
And then we stopped recording. So
Touche.
We've been in a lull for about, when was that? We recorded, a year ago?
No, more recent than that.
I guess it was last summer. 6 months?
Yeah, 6 months.
Hey, Ernie, can you get closer to the mic?
Yeah,
Thank you. I
absolutely.
appreciate you. So, I'm here in Dallas area, so I wanted to reach out to these guys while I was still here and
See what he did there?
try to get them on. What?
I said, see what you did there? Reach out?
Oh, yeah, yep, you're right.
That's another reason we started recording was because Madison had such terrible jokes that we were tanking every
I was
episode.
kind of like on the polarizing view of everything, so I got judged.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's...
I was mansplaining too much.
Yeah, but obviously y'all were friends before you started the podcast.
Yeah.
And I had somewhat an idea of y'all's friendship before the podcast. So it was, and I think that was what brought a lot of people in is no offense, Madison, but Ernie's the funny guy, and you know,
People laugh with Ernie. They just laugh at me.
fair enough, fair enough. But like, it was that like you guys were able to pick a side and kind of go back and forth on topics, and
There were a couple of times before we even recorded, Ernie was like, "Take this view." So I would do something, and then he'd be like, "Well, I gotta talk you down," or somebody told me they didn't like your view on that.
It's funny because I watch a lot of Barstool, and like a lot of their online, like their YouTube content. It's funny because you'll watch new people come in and they're like, you know, their whole thing is hot takes, you know, and so somebody will throw out a take and they're like, "Are you serious? Do you really believe that?" And it's like, "Yeah, I do, blah blah." And then like, you know, they have this other thing where like it's the rundown. So every day they have the rundown in the afternoon, and then twice a week now they have stool scenes, so it's like all the behind the scenes stuff. And so like the other day it literally showed them like arguing back and forth on the rundown, and then on stool scenes as soon as it was over, it's like, "No bro, I don't really mean that, like I didn't really believe that. It was just like you were going one way, so I had to go the other, and we got to make content here." So
Yeah.
But you guys are always, you know, it's always fun to know people and to hear stories from other people, and to hear
Most of the time, I wish our stories would have come like when we weren't recording.
yeah.
Like with us just hanging out, you could like we would say the dumbest crap. And
Yeah,
we'd
for
go from
sure.
there.
Or even during planning the podcast, or like what the run sheet's going to look like. That's honestly what we should record.
Yeah, I
And
felt like
we
we
never
put
do.
too much. We started putting too much thought into it too.
Yeah. Like you know, you talk about like some of the best stuff just comes from just bullshitting, you know,
Yeah.
like that's why I have this idea to like throw a party and like have a podcast party. It's like super open-ended.
Yeah.
And, you know, it like lasts 3 or 4 hours, and people come on for 30, 45 minutes at a time, and like, you know, everybody's watching. And I just think it would be a really cool idea
That is a good one.
if it was kind of a BYOB event.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Part of our problem was that we didn't respect the process enough. We would just try to get it done
Like, yeah.
out of the way.
We'd be like, let's do it today.
Yeah,
And we would
let's just
rush
get
it.
something out, and
Yeah.
it ended up being trash.
It was fun. I didn't think that many people would like it. I don't think either one of us did. And then there's still people that are like, "Oh, do it again, let's go."
Yeah.
Why not? And so
Did you ever get any hate? Anybody say anything bad about it?
Not general hate like of the podcast itself, but there were a lot of like segments people didn't like, or a major complaint was that it was too like centric to our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, if you didn't go to school with them or you didn't live in Dallas, you wouldn't understand.
Right.
they didn't know what we were talking about a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
And
to
then
a certain
some
point,
people were like, "Oh, the sound isn't that great," but at that point when we were doing it, we were just like, we listen to podcasts. We were like, "Oh, why not do one?"
and we
Yeah.
hadn't decided what our audience was at that time. I mean, at the time it was just for like our closest friends.
Yeah.
And then the idea of like maybe making something that people who we didn't know personally would listen to.
Right.
And so
That's definitely the biggest thing that I've found is like, you know, there's two schools of thought whenever I seek out a podcast. It's like, I either know that these people have somewhat of a following, or, you know, like there are connections there between the two of us, or they're just like super rad, super cool people that I want to get to know. And my school of thought as like, I've done a podcast solely on the fact that I thought it would get me more views. There is one of those that I've done.
Yeah.
And it was a good podcast, but my plan blew up in my face. And like, I should have known that, you know?
Yeah.
I should have known that whenever I went into it with those intentions that I wouldn't get that out of it. I don't know if y'all follow Gary Vaynerchuk. One of his principles is like create, and just put it out there. He was like, if you're 13 years old, put a video on YouTube once a month and never look at it. Never look at the views, never look at the numbers, and come back in 10 years and who knows what can come out of it. And just it's trying to eliminate that mindset of like doing it for the likes, doing it for the
That's
for
what
the
everybody
comments.
does now.
Yeah. And
I was surprised at the viewings and the likes and the listens that we got from people I would have never expected to.
yeah, people I'd never spoken to like were reaching out to me saying, "Oh, we want more episodes. That episode was so funny."
Dude, there
like,
was some guy that was like,
"Who were
it
you?"
helped me during my breakup.
"Oh yeah," someone
we
like
had never met this kid
wow.
before, and I was like, "What did we say that helped you through a breakup?"
that's funny.
It was very weird. I don't.
But I like that we were able to like to touch someone in that way.
Definitely.
That's terrible wording.
I didn't touch anybody.
I believe your children have touched me. I believe I've touched them. Yeah, it's you say that the whole connecting to your audience beyond the people that know you or went to school with you. There's only one other person that I know that we kind of went to college with that started a podcast, which was Molly Vanetta and Emily Stratton, which is another girl that I went to high school with. But they started a podcast called Singles in the South. It was just two girls like talking about dating and stuff, and I'm sure there's like a bazillion of those, and I would never listen to one of them, but because it was them, like I listened to it. Mm-hmm. So, but how did you guys come up with the podcast? How did you guys come up with the idea? I mean, I feel like Ernesto's always been trying to like do a blog or try to put out some content in some ways.
Whether it's a book or social media, Instagram.
So, Madison and I were big fans of the Grand X Network, which were like the same people that did the TFM stuff that was real big when we were in college.
But it wasn't like TFM stuff. It wasn't like we were still living in the days.
It was the things that they were doing after.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, we should do our own podcast. So what should we do? And during that time, Madison and I basically lived right down the street from each other. So we were always together.
Less than a mile.
Yeah. And I was always making Instagram stories of me like messing with Madison. And so we thought, what if we just do a podcast where you have terrible takes and I just essentially make fun of you? And surprisingly, he agreed. And then that's just kind of what we
It's just something I've accepted in any friend group I've had.
Yeah, I mean,
just constant roasting. Most of the group messages.
Your nickname is
I just
the
got
possum,
started
right?
in a group message with my girlfriend and her friends. And literally it turned into this week, them just roasting me on, on stuff that happened this past weekend. And I was like, okay.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, your nickname is the possum.
Yeah.
How did you gain that nickname? Can you share that story?
Have you looked at me? Everyone thinks I look like a possum. That came in college.
So I'm a year older than Madison, and when Madison had joined the fraternity we're a part of, someone went home for the holidays, and they had a possum that was like hanging around their house, and they took a picture of it, and they're like, you ever notice how Madison kind of looks like a possum? And then
it skyrocketed. Like everywhere.
Was the person that had the possum Dawson?
No. You could assume it was Dawson.
That's why I asked.
No, this is someone that lived in Houston. It was just very random.
But there's this one specific picture that you can see where Madison and this possum are identical.
Okay.
It's like the first one. It's a possum in the snow, and when you see it, all you see is Madison.
Ernie has it on his background for whenever I call him.
Yeah.
My little possum pops up.
Yeah.
That's
so
funny.
that's where it came from. And then like people that I've never even talked to, hung out with, will say it, and I'm like, I don't even know you that well.
Yeah.
I'm just glad my students haven't caught on to it yet.
For sure. That would be brutal. Speaking of that, you are a teacher.
I am.
Me personally, I think that's like the craziest thing in the world, but that's just my personality. Like I could never handle that.
It's a lot.
Where was the motivation behind that? Where did you get inspired to do that?
I thought I wanted to be a doctor, and then the schooling was just outrageous to me.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to school for that long. And then when I was in 7th grade, I had a teacher that like really pushed me to I skipped a grade of math. And so because she pushed me to do that, I wanted to be a teacher like ever since then.
Yeah.
Funny thing was, like, I reached out to her for a college project I was doing, and that woman had no clue who I was. I emailed her, and she was like, "Ha, that's great." I was like, "You're the reason I want to be a math teacher." And she, good to hear. And you could tell, I sent a paragraph, and she replied with 2 sentences, and I was like, "Okay,
tough."
And if that's not a
nothing
story,
like your role model, just if that's not a Madison Bottom story, I don't know what is.
Go ahead.
I mean, I love it. Just every day's a new day.
For sure.
You'll have kids that won't pay any attention one day, and then the next day they're on fire with it. And I couldn't see myself sitting behind a desk.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I led myself to teaching.
Yeah. So you're a math teacher.
Mm-hmm.
You teach high school.
I taught high school for 1 year in Ruston.
Okay.
That was when I was finishing grad school and then trying to adjust post undergrad life, which was kind of hard.
No doubt.
Living in Ruston, as you know, it's not the most glorious thing. So then I moved back to Dallas, got a job here, and I teach middle school here. When I came back, my end goal was to be a assistant principal, and I think I've kind of switched that to do more instructional coaching. So going into a classroom and being able to coach teachers how to teach.
Okay.
Which won't come for a while in the future, but that's my goal right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That's
crazy
cool.
how like I thought a lot of things in the school system had changed, but like Madison still spanks his kids when they act up.
Is that something you enjoy? Or?
No.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
No, it is such, that is.
So, all right, to change the subject.
Oh.
All right, you picked up running here in the past couple months or
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
What was the motivation behind that?
I just wanted to lose weight, and I'll like lift weight. I would lift weights for a couple weeks, and I would get so tired of it. And I just started running. I was, believe it or not, about 215 pounds probably a year and a half ago.
Wow,
So I ended up losing about 55 pounds just running.
that's awesome.
I've kind of slacked as of late, but my end goal, I'm almost to running a half marathon, but I have a mental block that I won't sign up for a race without hitting that distance first.
Yeah, yeah.
And everyone says it's like not how you're supposed to run, but it's just one of the
You seem
like
to
weird superstitions I have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much of the similar mindset. You also seem to do like I do. You just like to run outside.
Yeah, I can't run on a treadmill.
Yeah.
I want to I don't know. I don't like running inside.
But he has a
at all.
bad habit of running during the hottest part of the day in the summer, and then he wonders like why he feels really bad.
Yeah, but I used to. I made my old roommate come pick me up like 2 or 3 times because I get about 5 miles away from the apartment, and I would just get way too hot, and I'd be like, "Well, I'm not walking because that would take me about 3 hours."
Yeah.
And
See, I'm in on that. I'm in on running the hottest part of the day, but yeah, just maybe cut the distance back a little bit there, pal.
Also, I used to run like at weird hours of the night too, so I wouldn't start like an 11-mile run till like 10 o'clock. And I got stopped by a sketchy woman one time. She's like, "Can I borrow your phone? Mine's not working." She had hers in her hand, so she calls this number, and I was right next to Ernie's place when we lived together. I called Ernie. I was like, "If I died, I just need you to know I was on this road the last time." And I don't think I've run that late at night since then because it was sketchy.
Yeah. Do you? What is your diet like? I guess did you change your diet?
I run so I can eat whatever I want.
For sure. That's definitely the mindset that I operate under as well.
When I was like losing all that weight, I got just real health conscious. I was eating just a ton of chicken and vegetables.
Yeah.
Like every night, I would just come home and bake a chicken.
But you can only eat so much chicken.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it got old, and then now I realized like I can run in order to eat.
Do y'all know who
Exactly.
Vitaly is?
Uh-uh.
Vitaly's like this YouTube personality, but I was watching an interview with him the other day, and he was talking about how he's been doing steroids for 3 years, and he was like,
I never got on that train.
he's like, I do it right. I go to the doctor. Like the steroids that I take have my name on them. Like, he was like, but I also like my diet, like my whole regimen, super strict. He was like, the only things I eat are broccoli and chicken. He was like, I'm fucking miserable, but I look at me. He like stands up and just shows off his abs and like, whoa, pump the brakes, pal. Yeah, it was really funny. But you have run some races though, some 5Ks or something?
I've done 5Ks and a 10K.
Yeah.
I want to do a 15K, and then I want to do a half marathon. I know I can hit the 15K. I just don't know about the half marathon yet.
Do you follow a training regimen of some sort, or you just
It's all started from couch to 5K.
Yeah.
I use that app, and then they have a 10K app, and they have half marathon trainer.
They're actually doing that at Louisiana Tech now, the couch to 5K thing.
Oh, really?
A guy I'm kind of friends with, Dylan Allen, he's a coach there, and I guess he works for the school now. I'm not sure what his role is there, but he is teaching a couch to 5K class like every quarter.
That's nice.
So it's pretty cool. They're always at the track. That's where I met him. But
Yeah.
anyway,
No,
Ernie?
I mean, yeah, that was the app that I got, and
Yeah.
just rolled with it.
Yeah. All right, Ernesto. You were born in America?
Yeah.
You just visit Mexico often? I know. I was like, this is going to be the most awkward question to ask. I just don't know how to ask it, so it's going to be straightforward.
Well, it is always confusing because I always talk about Mexico City being home, but
Yeah.
so I was born here in Texas, but grew up my entire life in Shreveport. But my
City.
dad lived in Mexico, so
Okay.
anytime we'd have vacation or summers, I'd spend over there. So I'd go back and forth a lot. And Mexico City is my favorite city in the world, and so
Whoa.
it has like a very special like place in my heart, and so I see myself like ending up in Mexico City one day.
Yeah.
But
And you're completely bilingual.
yeah. Well, I like to say 90%. Like,
Fair enough.
Just because there's a lot of like technical things that I can't really say.
But you can get dropped off in Mexico City and make it.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. I've always thought about, like, people are like, yeah, you need to go to Tijuana. You need to go explore this, explore that. I'm like,
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend
I'm not
that.
going to Tijuana without someone who fully speaks Spanish and, like, knows all the slang and everything.
Say the wrong thing to the wrong person.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
I don't even know if I'd do it with someone who speaks Spanish.
Yeah, fair enough. So you grew up in Shreveport. You went to Tioga, maybe? No, that's different. That's in fucking
No.
Poundville. Where did you go to high school?
I went to Caddo Magnet.
Caddo Mag.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Stand up.
Theatrical boy.
What?
Theatrical boy.
Yeah, I was. If you couldn't tell by how dramatic I am. And
You in
every social-
theater?
yeah, I was, as they say, a thespian.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I never really explored that world. But I guess you did not pursue that in college, did you?
No, just because, like...
Did you ever go to one of the Louisiana Tech plays?
I did not. I would get an email about it every once in a while. I was like, keep scrolling.
I went once.
Yeah,
It wasn't bad, but I could not see Ernie.
I'll be
doing
honest.
that.
I saw our swim team on Instagram yesterday. They looked pretty lackluster as well.
I didn't even know we had a swim team.
Yeah, I didn't even know. And that's a question I wanted to ask you guys. Like, knowing what you know now, like being out of school for a while, if you could go back, would you still go to Louisiana Tech?
Yes.
Yeah, I would probably go to Louisiana Tech. I probably would not have joined a fraternity.
Really?
Yeah, it's a big push and pull thing there for me because I can look back on it and see how, like, I pushed away my passion for, like, videography because I was just, like, looking to the next person to hang out with, or, just go hang out in the parking lot or whatever. Yeah. But at the same time, like, I wouldn't have met y'all probably. Like, there's so many people, so many connections that I would not have had. I can't, you never, like, want to take it back, but it's like, I do think about often the other things that could have happened if I had, I would have probably been on the wakeboarding team more, part of that stuff, just because I was really into that, and I was on the team, but I didn't really participate in it because I was more looking forward to drinking and hanging out with my friends,
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but like I said, I wouldn't have been a part of IFC. I wouldn't have gained certain leadership abilities and gone through stuff in life.
Would you not have gone to Louisiana Tech?
Mr.
Harvard?
I think at the end of the day, yeah, I would. Just because, like you said, the connections that I made there are so valuable to me now that like it doesn't matter. Because I mean, we're out here in Dallas and we're kicking SEC Big 12 like asses out here, and we went to like a little school.
What SEC team did we beat?
No, I'm like people who like went to bigger schools. Like we're competing with them, and it doesn't even matter. Like at the end of the day, it's what you do, not really what your degree does. Yeah. So, and if I didn't go to Tech, I would have never, ripped my shirt off at a basketball game.
I mean, I just think about, all the people that we know that went to LSU and came back after a freshman year, or, just stuff like that.
Well, I think the small town of Ruston helped with all that, though.
Oh, yeah.
The people at LSU got thrown into Baton Rouge and had never been exposed to probably anything like that before.
Well, and, you without the fraternity, it's a real small place.
Yeah.
If you're not
Everyone
a part
goes
of
home
something,
on the weekend,
if you're not in a group, involved in some things, Ruston can, I saw plenty of people do that. They came to Ruston and turned around and went back to ULM the next year and was living in mom and dad's house, but
ULM.
I think Ruston, Louisiana Tech is, especially early on whenever we were there, it was, I think it got a little more strict as we got there.
It was like Lord of the Flies when we first got there.
Yeah.
We did whatever we wanted. There was just like its own little thing, disconnected from the world.
Very wild. Yeah. It was definitely a whole other city, and especially right there where we were hanging out with the Delta Chi Sigma Nu House, like that little street. You could get away with a whole bunch of stuff running around up and back and forth that street, and between the Delta Chi's and the Sigma Nus, we pretty much proved that, and the Pikes, I guess. As long as you don't get in a fight, it's pretty much okay. Yeah. But it was just all the woods behind the Sigma Nu House and like the gravel parking lot, all that stuff was the Wild West back there for a while.
There's sometimes I'm just like, man, I hope certain things just never come back up.
Yeah. Were y'all still there when Rabs was?
Yeah.
Yeah, were there right at the
It
end
was
of
my
that?
freshman year.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, it's the same thing, just
Oh,
a different name.
I
now.
feel Rabs was very different than the Rev, though. It was wilder.
Yeah. See, like somebody asked me the other day, was like, so-and-so, she worked at Ponch. And I was like, you got to realize, like, yeah, I spent a bunch of time at Ponch, like, junior through the rest of the time I was there. Like, before I turned 21, I didn't really go out to bars. Like, I was absolutely scared to death to go to Ponch before I turned 21 because I just knew I was going to get kicked out and they were never going to allow me back.
Right, yeah, like Ponch wasn't our turf, so like I never thought about going to Ponch. It was always Doghouse.
Yeah.
That was our place, or Rabs.
For sure.
Because that's where we had older guys working there. But yeah, I never.
That was amazing
to
too.
Ponch.
That was an adjustment moving to Dallas.
What?
It was just like you don't know any of the bartenders.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's
I actually had to pay a full tab.
You bring up a good point, though. Like, the fraternities at Tech were kind of divided in, like, where they hung out at, for sure, especially between the Ponch and the Doghouse.
Most of our guys just never left the house.
Yeah.
Most of our guys didn't leave the rooms.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, y'all did have a very nice new house shortly after
I hate that
joining.
house.
Really?
I hate everything about that house.
Yeah.
I think that house brought more problems than it did like solutions for us. I was able to know like the old house that was like that old shack on the corner that no one paid attention to, and now we have this mansion that everyone sees. So of course we're,
It's so crazy. You go to other schools though, and that ours looks small,
Right.
compared to them. And then all the y'all are rebuilding.
Yeah,
rebuilding
yeah.
the house.
I actually tore it down. My family's business tore it down, so
Oh,
that was
nice.
a very bittersweet day and a half there.
Yeah, I bet a lot of memories.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so like my freshman year, I came to Tech. I did not rush. I just hung around, but I lived right there, on the same side of the street that Delta Chi House is on. I was on the opposite corner,
The apartments.
in that it was apartments
Yeah.
on the first floor. So like every Sunday, I heard y'all coming out in the front and cheering and stuff, and
I forgot we did that.
yeah. That was one of the. I was just like, and I had already. So I came to Tech with very few friends. All my friends came from West Monroe, went to LSU or ULM, and I ended up meeting a couple people: Austin Etier, Austin Vadrine. Those guys were from Monroe, but I met them like 2 weeks before we came to school. So the first week that we moved to Ruston, Gary Allen played at Rabs. And so we all went, and I went with them, and we went to the Sigma Nu house. Well, my older brother, 7 years older than me, he was a Sigma Nu, and there were a couple of guys who were seniors that knew who my brother was. And so whenever I showed up, you're rushy, everybody wants to know your name, and they tell them my name, and I mean, hey, let's get this kid a beer, blah, blah. Like, we got to get this kid. And, like, I was just like, it took me, like, 2 weeks. Like, I'm not allowed to rush my freshman year. So
is that like a parent thing?
It was really my brother. Like, my brother told me not to do it, and so I didn't do it. I was like, all right, he's been a part of this.
Yeah.
Like, he knows the ins and outs of it. If he says I should wait a year and decide, then I should probably wait a year and decide. I mean, I made like a 1.8 that first quarter, and I wasn't in a fraternity, so that was probably for the best. But yeah, I hung out there so much that I ended up just like wanting to be a part of it and whatnot. Yeah. So I don't know where that story got brought up, where it was going, but that's the way it is.
I never knew, Madison, why did you pick Delta Chi?
I mean, Dad was Kappa Sig. My dad was the Kappa Sig president there.
At Tech. Oh, yeah. Wow.
And so, I mean, I don't know. I just didn't fit in.
Like, how can I disappoint him even more today?
Yeah. What gut punch can I throw at him now? I don't know. That was like one of the first houses I went to because of Nick Wrangler. I went to high school with him. And I don't know. Didn't really go many other places.
Yeah.
I mean, I met like Chase Patterson. I was really good friends with Chase Patterson's cousin at Sigma Nu, and I had grown up with her, and so like I knew people, and I don't know. It's hard to like say why I decided.
Yeah.
I never hung out at Delta Chi. I guess you get that Delta Chi's are douchebags mentality or whatever that people start throwing around, and And then the Pikes had their own reputation, and it was like everybody that went Sigma Nu split Sigma Nu and KA. And so I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm just going to split Sigma Nu and KA. Well, that was sophomore year. Sophomore year, I was taking business law. Business law was a night class, 2 days a week.
With Hearn.
With Hearn.
Big Daddy Hearn.
And so Will Dearman was the IFC president at the time. And I said, hey, Will, I have to skip a night of Rush. He was like, what? I was like, I have night class. I'm willing to skip one night of class. I'm not going to skip 2 nights in a week. Like, I'll skip the later night in the week to have the more time at the closer house or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, so I skipped like the second night of 5 houses or whatever, and which was the KA house, and so they cut me. And so I went back the next day to like go to the KA house, and I couldn't go to the KA house because they had cut me. So I ended up splitting with Pike and went Sigma Nu, and like 2 weeks later I saw A.T. Emery at Ponchatoula's, and I was like, A.T., man, why'd y'all cut me? And he was like, Dan, you didn't show up to our fucking house. And I was like,
I had class.
Man, forgot to text you and tell you about that, man. He was like, yeah, if you had texted me and told me that, we probably would have kept you around. But
that whole process is just crazy, though.
Yeah.
I thought about Sigma Nu, but I wasn't good enough at sports, so I got cut immediately.
You're looking for more of the theatrical role.
We had already met our minority cut for the year. God. Dude,
Nice.
you want to talk about some arguments within Sigma Nu? There were some people there that were very staunch on keeping minorities to a minimum, and we were like, guys,
Which is crazy, like thinking about
it's
people probably still
fucking
abide by that now.
2016. like-
Right, yeah.
But even I guarantee people still abide by it now.
Oh, yeah.
It's nuts.
Well, and I now that we're far and away separated from this stuff, I'll talk about it pretty openly. But there was one guy who went through maybe my junior or senior year, black kid, very intelligent, very seemed to be athletic, and
So y'all were like, oh, hey, we got him.
well, he also seemed to be interested in us,
Yeah.
and so we were rushing him hard, and he was hanging out with us, but he was a black kid with dreads, and like there's a visual component to that, regardless of whether you want to admit it to or not. But a visual component that a lot of people don't agree with, I guess, is one way to put it. But anyway, we tried to take him into the final round or whatever, and he cut us. And we reflect on that, and we're like, all right, let's look around, guys. There's like 2 or 3 people out of the 80 or 90 of us that are of Hispanic descent, and that's it.
Yeah.
There are no Asians, there are no black people here. Like, that kid saw that.
Yeah.
He's not ignorant, and so he probably went where there were other people, that were minorities. There were more minority, and he ended up going PICAP. Yeah. I mean, that's, you look back on that, and you're like, all right, it makes sense.
It makes sense, yeah.
So.
But it's still crazy that people are still against it.
Oh, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there were serious knockout, drag out, crying arguments within our chapter about some of that stuff.
See that? I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, it was just and so I don't know how y'all's goes about, but we work on the single black ball system. So one person says they don't like you, then you're out. And there's some fighting.
So the way we do it,
There's some fighting there, but yeah.
Ernie, so you'd have to come up with
you had to give three negatives in order to get cut. A lot of times we'd only be able to get 2 negatives. So it was my job. If you knew those 2 were bad enough, it was always my job to come in and say something just so astronomically off the wall about this. And people would think that I was being serious, but I'd say
he used to kill sewer rats.
Yeah.
And one guy's like, oh, yep, I don't want them.
Were y'all allowed to drink
No.
during cut session?
I mean, I bet there are people that try.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was kind of the thing. There was early on, it was an open thing. It was something that was able to do, and then like the more the years went by, it was like, all right, this is getting really ridiculous. Like, we have to. It's taking a lot of time because people were just shouting obnoxiously. But
our guys were already too emotional sober. I couldn't imagine them drinking.
Yeah.
There would have been a lot more tears.
to combat what you're saying, like, there was literally a kid who went active in Sigma Nu who got a bid because he rolled his own cigarettes.
He brought his own creme brulee flavored tobacco and would
you
roll
need that
his own
guy.
cigarettes.
You need that
And,
guy on
like,
your team.
You never know when
People,
you're
a
gonna be
couple
on the back
people
porch.
are like, this kid's name gets brought up and like, cut, scratch. That's what we scratch. And it's like, all right, so we open up discussion. And it's like, well, what's the deal? Why don't you like it? Blah, 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 blah. Man, I don't know. I really think we need to keep this guy around. He rolls his own cigarettes. And he does a really good job of it. He always got them. And like, a couple people start looking around like, I smoke cigarettes. And
Yeah,
I kind of
right.
I like free cigarettes. Like, yeah, let's keep him around. We'll see how long he'll last. Well, he lasted the whole time, and he's an active member. So
One year we like messed up the sheets where we were like keeping names and like saying who we're cutting, and we got mixed up in the order. So we ended up like cutting some kids that we wanted and like keeping some dudes who we didn't want, who I'm sure were like serial killers. And so that sucked.
now that I bring this up, someone pops up into my mind, and I'm gonna roast him right now because it involves both of our houses. Nick Liberatos. Nick Liberatos took a bid from Delta Chi, I believe, and within the hour of you putting in your decision on the computer and him like getting home and sitting on the toilet, I guess he decided that he did not want to go Delta Chi and that he wanted to go Sigma Nu, and we had to go through a gigantic process to allow him to do that.
Collusion.
Oh, because
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah, it's like me and Paul Farmer on IFC at that point in time. And then it was Will Lorio and Seth, and we kicked Seth out. Sorry, Seth. I knew that was going to get brought up at some point. So I got no hard feelings against Seth Pointer anymore, but that was a weird time in life, and
I wonder if he'll listen.
It's funny you say that because there's so many relationships like at tech where like I hated people because of their affiliation. Where it's like now I'm like,
I never went through the phase of
liked
hatred.
each other.
yeah.
There wasn't anybody I hated.
It's like Sigma Nu had this band that would go around in this black Tahoe, and I couldn't even walk across the bridge to go to class without getting shit from like all four people that always be in that one black Tahoe.
I know exactly who you're talking
And I was like, fuck. And I'm
think I
sure
know
like
what you're
we'd be
talking
cool as shit if it weren't
Yeah.
for like our affiliations.
Yeah.
But like I never.
The
really
guy that
hated
drives
it. I
that
think,
Tahoe is the coolest one in the car, and he was probably just doing that because the rest of the dudes in there were.
But like every time I saw you, we would say hi to each other. It wouldn't be like screw that guy.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I don't think I ever hit that.
But I feel like
hatred
we
phase.
always had an understanding. Especially like I'd see you on the sidelines of like intramural games. You were always rocking like a cool stash.
Yeah.
And I was like, that
Well,
dude's-
and I think there was something. There was respect gained between people who were like mutually trying to lift up fraternities, and like if you were involved in IFC or you come to the IFC meeting, like you were more likely to speak to each other in public, and you getting involved in things really goes a long way. Whereas if every time I see you at the bar you flip me off or you say fucking Sigma Nu, like yeah, I'm probably not gonna like you. But there's plenty of those people who, like you said, I judge and I still do it. Terrible about it. I do it to podcast guests. Like I just like assume things based on the way you look or what I've seen on your Instagram, and there's a lot more to life and people than that. But like I never knew how philosophical you can be, ripping your shirt off. So Ernie is famous for ripping his shirt off at
He made the news,
at
right?
tech basketball games. Where did that originate? Please
So-
tell me the story.
So at first, basketball was like a big thing for like a large group of our fraternity, and so we'd always go together. And
That was when we were really good. We had that like breakout.
I was
year.
about to say
Yeah.
we had a couple really good
Yeah.
years.
it
in
was,
basketball
it
as
was
well.
a year like we went to the NIT and
the not invited tournament.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, "Oh heck yeah, and we're playing at home."
and the local gym had this thing called like the flex cam or whatever, and so it had been a progression of a couple of games where it got on me, and at the time I was working at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, so I'd always go right after work, and I'd still be in like my
Dressed up.
dressed
Hey,
up.
I mean to interrupt you. Did you know my friend Dion Fowler?
I don't.
He worked for Enterprise there for a little while. in
I
Ruston.
feel like I feel
he was at Grambling at the time. He would have been working there.
that name sounds familiar.
Anyway, he was the last podcast that I did. But
Okay.
anyway, continue on.
So like it progressed in every game where I ended up being on like the flex cam. It like I did something more theatrical, and so finally we got to the NIT, And it was the last time that I knew it was going to happen. And the person who actually was in charge of like the cameras was my big brother in the fraternity. So I was like, look, I got something planned. I need you to like pick up me whenever you're like scoping out the audience. He was like, okay, cool. And so, you know, Turn Down for What comes on, and it's right at the perfect moment when the beat drops. And I had an undershirt where like the entire day I was at work and I'd already planned. I cut a little bit.
Okay,
so
I was
that
going to
way,
ask, because I don't think I could rip a shirt.
yeah, no,
Just,
because I was like, the
plain.
last thing I want is to get on there and not be able to rip this shirt and look like an idiot. So the entire day I'm just having this like undershirt with like little cuts in it. And finally I see myself on the Jumbotron, and you can see me shake my head because I almost thought about not doing it. And so I decided to do it, and I rip off the first shirt. People start standing up and cheering, and then I rip the undershirt, and people go crazy. The band director had this like Louisiana Tech like necklace that he gave to me like right after I ripped my shirt. It was wild for like a whole week.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, I have it.
Here you
like,
go, son.
Yeah, I have it in my room. People would buy me food for like weeks after that, and they'd want to talk to me, but it sucks because like professors, like kids would come up to me, or like the community wanted me to be something that at the time I wasn't, and I felt bad for that because I was like, I'm still that degenerate who's like drinking like on the weekends or every day.
You were probably a little buzzed doing it.
Yeah, I was like, so I was like, I can't be like this fun, family-friendly person that you think I am.
Yeah.
And they wanted that, and I was like, I can't.
You were still very much that guy that you posted a picture of the other day with the cigarette and the hatchet.
Yeah. Always trying to get a reaction in that. But then the school approached me and asked if I could be on like the Jumbotron for football games on Third Down.
You did it.
I was like, yeah, and I did that.
How did that happen? How did the school approach you?
Someone from like the sports, I forget what they were called, but like they had a conference room that's under the TAC.
Yeah.
And they sat me down. They're like, look, we want you to like to do this if you wouldn't mind. Like, we think
how'd they get in contact with you though? Pigeon mail? Just a letter just appeared at your house?
No, people had followed me on Snap because they got people that wrote like articles about me, including my social media. So then they started following me, and then someone DM'd me and then set up the meeting. And so I went and I spoke with them. No, actually, at the time, the girl I was dating at the time worked for the athletic department, and she helped set it up. And so I went and I spoke with them, and I was like, sure, I'll do it. And everyone always said, why don't you get paid? And I was like, because, I mean, I love my school and I love doing this. And it's like,
did they offer
I'm
to
not going
pay
to be
you?
an No, they didn't offer to pay me.
I was about to say, and you declined it?
So what, you just became like the hype man?
Yeah, I kind of became the hype man. But then, like, you know, we would do things like beer Olympics and stuff like that, and I'd be posting that, and then that's whenever they kind of wanted to like distance themselves from
Right.
And also, whenever our band would play neck, I'd always be the loudest voice singing along.
Yeah.
And so I got kicked out of football games because of it, you know, and so.
That's so strange, man. It's so strange. Just because, like, hearing that you got kicked out of the game for that, like, and just knowing what other people got kicked out of the game for, just that's sad. But you know, that's a weird thing because I battled that to some degree myself. Being on IFC and still like you say, living the way that I was, and just the party mentality that I had for a lot of my life there. It ended up, I mean, there was a lot of things that happened, but I ended up getting elected IFC president for like 4 days, and I rejected it. Then Caden became president.
Smith?
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. There was a lot of stuff that happened there that I don't necessarily want to talk about, but a part of that was I thought I was going to graduate. I thought I was going to graduate.
Didn't we all?
Earlier than I actually did. And
Hey, I graduated.
so I ended up like rejecting the presidency and like going to Sigma Nu like that next week and like, hey, I'm getting out of the fraternity, and
Oh, really? You dropped? You got out?
Yeah. Oh, I was. They allowed me to go alumni early.
Oh, nice.
And
Oh, so you guys weren't like blood in, blood out?
right.
I guess.
Yeah. It wasn't.
Ernie went inactive like 4 or 5 times.
Wow. Yeah, but like I basically told them. I basically forced it upon the chapter because I went to our chapter advisor, Joe Reyes, and he's been there for 20 plus years, and I basically told him my situation, what I was looking to do, and he was like, yeah, you got my support. And I was like, all right, cool. And so when I came to my turn to speak at meeting, I stood up and I was like, hey, I know it's supposed to go to a vote for me to go to alumni, but I'm going alumni. I spent 3 years on IFC and, blah, blah, and just gave a whole list of reasons and things that I'd done for the fraternity, and basically made it to where, like, if you didn't allow me to go, you're being a dick. And so, yeah, I was able to go alumni and basically just still showed up every day and just didn't go to meetings.
Seems like we had a very similar path.
Yeah. It was like, wait, I can still use my influence here.
I was always just still, strings behind the curtain.
Oh, there's pledges here. I'm going to go talk shit to them. Which I don't know about Delta Chi, but Sigma Nu is totally different than it used to be, than it was whenever I went through. Which Sigma Nu is a military-based fraternity, so I never got paddled. I never took a blow. Just got yelled at and asked to do favors, that kind of stuff.
We did our paddling like afterward, like when you graduate.
It was like a graduation tradition.
Yeah,
but
so it wasn't like a hazing.
There wasn't any bad intent.
Yeah.
No.
It was a fun thing. It wasn't hazing.
Yeah. It wasn't. You made the paddle.
Yeah, there's some hazing that's fun.
No
How
doubt.
You look at it.
No doubt.
There's the biggest thing. I understand that there were tragedies that happened with the kidnapping game, but kidnapping was so much fun. And for those who don't know, kidnapping was you would take 2 pledges and then drop them off in the middle of nowhere with like a 12-pack of beer, and they would have to start walking back, and you would tell the rest of their pledge brothers giving them a hint. So now everyone scatters to go try to find them. But during that time, you're getting to know someone that you typically wouldn't really
I don't know. I
talk
never
to.
got kidnapped, and
Well, that's because it was done by the time you got there.
And I turned out just fine. The fact of me being stranded I would be paranoid.
Well, you had a buddy. You weren't by
I
yourself.
don't care what I would have had. I would have had paranoia and anxiety.
We had pledge retreat, and my year we went to Lake Ouachita, and we were shortly upon arrival were enlisted a buddy, and we had to learn as much as we could about that person. Well, my buddy was Jonathan Roberts, and Jonathan Roberts went to West Monroe as I did, and
So you guys are in.
and I was like, what the hell am I going to learn about this kid? And he told me one girl particularly that he had sex with in high school, and I was just so blown away that he hooked up with this girl. And so whenever they came around, was like, Dan, what's your fact about Jonathan? I'm like, boom. And a couple other people there from West Monroe were like, wait, what? Really? Really?
I'm just
threw
glad
up
you
there.
don't wear your hat like a West Monroe person.
Do what?
You don't wear your hat.
Oh,
typically,
yeah.
like a West
No,
Monroe
that's
person.
Monroe. Monroe wears their hats like this. Yeah.
Just where it's also where it's right there.
Yeah,
Barely
yeah.
on. Did you ever go through that phase?
The West Monroe thing, whenever I was there, was more of the redneck, just crank your bill over as much as possible.
Get a little tattered.
You don't want to necessarily crack it in the middle, but get as close to that as possible. And I mean, up until my sophomore year of high school, Confederate flags were allowed at West Monroe High School. So I don't know. Do y'all recall?
They're still the rebels, aren't they?
We are still the rebels. Do y'all recall whenever the whole Kappa Sig Facebook incident
Yes.
happened?
Mhm.
And I don't know, were y'all a part of that meeting that we
Wait,
had?
which one? The one with the GPA one?
Yes,
Yeah.
the GPA one
Yeah.
that made CNN.
Did it really?
Yeah, that whole thing
Yeah.
made
I didn't know
CNN.
it
But
CNN.
Sam Speed was in charge of IFC at that point, or he was in charge of something, and he called together a big meeting, and it was basically we're going to talk about race issues on campus, and
I didn't go to that meeting.
he made 3 or 4 people from every fraternity, including the black fraternities on campus, come to this
Yeah,
meeting.
I remember that.
And he was like, all right, I'm opening the floor for discussion. And it was silent. So I was like, all right, here we go. Time to break the ice. So I stood up.
You spoke up.
I stood up and was like, look, I grew up in West Monroe, Louisiana. Up until my sophomore year of high school, we flew Confederate flags. I flew Confederate flags behind
They
my
still
truck
do.
at one point.
I feel like they still do that.
I realize now that was ignorant and that was dumb and I didn't understand what it meant to a lot more people than it does just in the town of West Monroe. You know, I was very narrow-minded in that point of life, and I've learned from that, and I think that we can all learn from that and like grow up.
I feel like they still
I was just trying to break the ice, and like it sure did, dude. As soon as that was over, like people started looking around and like, all right, you know, this is kind of a safe space. We're gonna talk about things, and that lasted for maybe 20, 30 minutes, and I don't think that it really accomplished what he was looking for it to accomplish, but may have been some steps in the right path.
I think I remember when that news broke, and I think it caused a lot of like people rifts inside of each individual fraternity too, because there were people who didn't get the big deal and were more insulted that someone like would leak that, and I was like, well, no, you should be insulted that someone's a part of your, you know, organization that thinks like that. So unfortunately, that was something we were still having to debate amongst each other in 2015,
2016, yeah. That was something that was made a big deal, but I think it could have been a lot bigger than it ended up being.
Because by the time the bus incident came around, that wasn't necessarily
wasn't our school.
It wasn't our school, but like it was big enough to where we could discuss it again. It was like quickly just shoved under the rug.
Yeah, I heard a kid got injured there at Kappa Sig this year on bid day, but
really?
That's all I heard. So I won't go into any details. I guess what's y'all's Delta Chi story? Why did y'all join Delta Chi? Or I guess we kind of talked about it with Madison, but
so I had a brother who's 9 years my senior who's a Delta Chi.
Just say 9 years older.
He's 9 years older than me. And
there you go.
He was a Delta Chi, and so I have two older brothers, and they were the only people in my entire life that called me Ernie. I always went by Ernesto, but when I showed up on campus for orientation, there were people who still remembered him, and so they'd remember me by Ernie.
Yeah. And
at that time, I was too intimidated to correct anyone. So like at orientation, I became Ernie, and I was like, I hate that name, but now it's gonna become my identity.
Yeah.
So
do you still hate it?
No, now it's just I separate the two. There's like Ernesto, and then there's Ernie.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of essentially I didn't suicide rush, but I suicide rushed. And didn't really consider any other house, which I felt bad because during my first 2 weeks as a freshman, I became close friends with some of members at Pi Cap. They quickly dissipated after I ended up choosing Delta Chi. So I just kind of went to Rush. During Rush, I'd only go and eat and then leave, but at KA, they had canes, and they had the lights off while they were showing their little video, and the lights turned on, and they all look at me in the back, and I had dripped cane sauce over my shirt. And I was like, yep, I'm getting cut. Yeah.
I'm going to go head out.
And then at Pike, I accidentally got into an argument with one of their alumni about how he was like, yeah, we're going to show you a presentation on brotherhood. And I said, don't you think that's a little generic? And then he was like, well, what would you want to see? I was like, I don't know, man. I'm just saying, everyone talks about brotherhood. And he was like, why don't you just leave? And I was like, all right, peace.
See you later.
Yeah. The only other place that I had a legitimate good time was at AGR.
Yeah.
But years later, AGR and Delta Chi just kind of linked up all the time. So
yeah. Our connection to AGR was they had the hand to the captain. We were given a statue of Captain Morgan, and
they had the hand of it?
The hand was ripped off of it whenever we received it. It was so whenever Ravs became Rev, a bunch of Sigma News went to work there, and they were clearing out all the storage of all the beer pictures and signs and stuff, and that was there. And someone at some point from AGR. Apparently, the hand was hanging on by a thread anyway, and somebody was just drunk enough to rip it off at some point and sneak it out of the Rabs, and so it was just at the AGR house for years. Well, then we inherited the captain.
With just a random hand.
Yeah, right. We inherited the captain, and we start posting about it on social media, and next thing you know, some AGR's like, bro, we got the hand for that.
Just in the shrine.
We knew the hand was missing clearly, but we didn't ever think about what happened to it.
I loved the things that we would all steal from each other. I remember one day, whenever I was on our executive council, I stepped out to smoke a cigarette like 3 in the morning, and I see 2 of our guys walking across the street with one of y'all's composites.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, "Oh, Ernie, look what I said." I said, "Back. Take it back," because you guys were out of town, like on a retreat. I said, "Just put it back."
Yeah.
They're like, "No, come on, man. They steal our shit all the time." I said, "Put it back."
Yeah.
Dude, I saw the Star Room one time.
Oh, yeah?
Bruce showed me that, and that was the
Who did? Bruce?
Bruce.
Man, I don't like
It was like
Bruce.
a three- it was
I'll talk shit to Bruce's face right now.
It was at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I think it was when I was in orientation. We like literally walked by the house, and he's like, "Oh, I want it."
No, yeah. Yeah.
He's like, look at this," and I was like, "It's like a hole in the wall," and it was creepy.
Yeah, that's
All the trophies and everything.
spiral staircase.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't exist for like the last year that the house was in existence because the fire marshal finally came in and was like, "All right, guys, I've told y'all like 18 times that you can't use this room because there's only one exit out of it. And if this building catches on fire, you will all die in there." So I am
Jeez.
condemning this room and,
So
yeah,
did you guys abide by what he said, or did you still just?
until someone came in and took out the stairwell.
Oh, they took it out.
Yeah, they removed the
I'm
whole.
surprised you didn't put a ladder there.
I mean, they did in the end, but we had to retrieve all the stuff out of there before we tore it down. So
Can't go without all the
honestly,
trophies.
it is a miracle that what happened to the house didn't happen to it earlier because
That fire.
no, there was a tree that fell on the house. That was
Oh, yeah.
really what the demise of it was. The tree fell on the house.
Wasn't there a fire though?
There was a fire in the kitchen.
Yeah.
There was a fire in the kitchen.
That was like during a party. Wasn't
That was
it?
during Christmas party. Man, that's a good point. I was at Ponch that night, and Henry Thompson walks in, and he's like covered in soot, and I was like, "Henry, why are you dirty? Why are you dirty?" And he's like, "Bro, you didn't hear the Sigma Newhouse caught on fire?" And I was like, "Why are you here? Why are you not watching it burn?"
Couldn't lose my bug.
And he was like, "Oh, it's not on fire anymore." And I was like, "Why did y'all stop it from burning?" And they're like, "Well, there's people shitting there." And I was like, "Whatever, dude." And about 20 minutes later, another kid comes in, and he is like, looks like he's put on blackface. He's like, I mean, not really. That was dramatic, but like he was very, very dirty. And I was like, "Bro, did you put out the fire?" And he was like, "Yeah, I did. It was pretty sick." And I was like, "Why the fuck would you do that?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Why didn't you just let the house burn down? Like, it's old as crap." And he's like, "Bro, I live there. My shit's there." And I was like, "All right,
I guess,
fair
yeah.
point. Fair point. I probably would have put it out too if my stuff was there. Actually, I probably would have thrown it in my truck and gotten out of there as fast as possible. But
There's a party going on. Dan's just moving.
I probably would have grabbed my computer and my TV and rolled out. But yeah, whenever the tornado came through,
Were you there when the tornado happened?
I was living in Ruston. I was living in my house, which
How close is it to you?
it came half a mile south of me. So I woke up. That was like a Thursday morning. I woke up at 6 a.m. to go to work, and I had heard, I woke up in the middle of the night or whatever to my phone going off, and my mom texted me, and so I was aware that a big storm had come through, but I got up, put my clothes on. I knew that it rained a lot, so it wasn't like a rush to get to work because we usually, depends on the weather. And what we were doing at that time, I knew if it was wet, that we weren't going to be doing a whole lot. So I took my time, got up, took a lap around my house just to make sure no limbs are down, nothing. I was like, all right, cool. While I'm doing that, my dad calls me. Again, 6 a.m. And he's like, "Hey, man, are you all right?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." He's like, "Do you have power?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." He's like, "All right. You got any limbs down?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, a tornado hit downtown." And I was like,
It tore up.
okay. Well, while he's calling me, my uncle, who lives just north of town, also works for us, he calls me. And I was like, "Look, Dave's calling me, and this dude don't ever call me, so I'm going to answer the phone." And so I answered, and he's like, "I don't know if you're trying to leave your house, but there's power lines down everywhere." So, where Scott's Fish,
Yeah.
that was the way that I was going to have to go, and there were power lines down all along there. So I waited about an hour and left, and actually, I say that. I was in our work truck, which has strobe lights in the front and the back, And one of my pledge brothers texted me, Levi Songer texted me and was like, hey, man, are y'all good? I was like, yeah, I am. He was like, have you heard from Tobin? Tobin is another one of our pledge brothers who
He married
his wife, Anna Claire, was pregnant at the time. And I was just, and they live right behind the shopping center there, like in downtown. And like as soon as Levi texted me and asked me if I was okay, I thought about them. And so I got in my truck, turned my strobes on, and was like honking and screaming at people and was trying to get to Tobin's house. Of course, Tobin didn't answer the phone when I called him, and he called me back like I was literally about to pull in his driveway, and he called me. He was like, hey, man, what's up? I was like, are you alive? Yeah, I'm alive. So, yeah, that was wild. If you go down Barnett Springs, you still wouldn't recognize it right now. Like it's just looks like a bomb went off. I know they're working with some different organizations now to replant local trees, and for free. Like you basically just have to sign up for a program, and if all your trees were taken out in your yard, they'll come and plant some trees at your house.
Oh, nice.
And there's a lot of things going on in Ruston right now. They're moving forward. You know, they're working on a big bike path to go all the way through the city, and the Rock Island Greenway is what it's called.
I'm excited for Ruston, and I'm happy for it, but I don't know if I want any part of like Ruston's future. Yeah. Because like it's the way that I last saw it is frozen in time for me, and like I think that's like I don't know if I'll ever go back to Ruston. Yeah. Like right now like if I want to see Tech, I'll go to UNT like whenever they play. Like next year they're gonna play Baylor. Like
you're gonna go back.
As much as like I love Tech and I have these great memories, there's also a lot of like
watch who's going next week.
A lot of bad memories there too. So I think like I did what I needed there, and I'll always like value that. But I think
that's not dramatic at all.
I see. I guess I have a. If I had left whenever you left, I probably would have the romantic idea of it. But now that currently, right now, today, like Ruston is in shambles as far as like structurally. Like there's just a lot of construction and stuff going on, so it's like chaos.
So you were pretty busy, huh?
Yeah, we were doing a lot of stuff in Ruston. We were working a lot in Ruston, pouring sidewalk and stuff, really, all along there near the Blind Center and the Farmers Market in that area, and along the hospital and there as well. But we would do a lot of work in North Louisiana, Monroe and Homer and all over the place. But yeah, I mean, I think my parents are not going to leave Ruston anytime soon, so I'll have to go back.
Not coming.
It's weird to like spend 16 years in West Monroe and call Ruston home. I say it's weird, but it's not. Like it is home. And I lived in West Monroe basically all of October and December with some friends, and it's a totally different place than where I grew up. You know, it's a good 10,000 more people than whenever I left it. Oh yeah, I
student taught at Good Hope.
Okay, I went to Good Hope. Yeah. I went to Good Hope whenever it was like 3 years old. Yeah. So
that's a good school.
Yeah, for sure. I grew up in that Choctaw neighborhood right there around the corner.
That was a long drive from Ruston every single day, though.
Yeah, no doubt. I got lucky whenever I worked in West Monroe and was living in Ruston. I just had to go to Will Road. So, and I lived towards Squire Creek with my parents. So I would just get off on Shoedrint and get off on Will Road. It was like 15, 20 minutes. Nice. Because I worked at JPS Equipment Rental for like a year and a month before I moved up to Denver. But, yeah. What else has been going on? I don't know. I don't know where we're going to go with this conversation. There's a million ways we can go. But we talk about connections and stuff like that. So, like, Dawson Gould, we talked about Dawson earlier. Dawson is, like, a really weird outlier for me because we essentially came to college together. We ran in a lot of the same, like, circles, but never knew each other until after college. He was already working for my dad. And so
he lives out here now.
Yeah, whenever I moved back from Denver, I ended up working with him every day for like a little over a year.
He's a character.
He is. He made life a lot of fun for sure, and he's been through he's been put into some really weird situations with like his whole exotic animal experience and stuff like that.
His caracal.
Yeah,
Yeah, in college, everyone used to go to their house because they just wanted to see those cats.
Yeah, they had this wild exotic cats. They had kangaroos, monkeys. Like
yeah, their house was like a zoo, literally.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, Madison, you were on OSL at one point.
I was.
What was the motivation behind joining OSL?
Please tell us a positive.
So, look, my brother was OSL.
I mean, it was.
I applied for OSL 3 years in a row and never went through the effort of getting my recommendation letters. And so, like, every time Daniel Doopy's like, Dan, why are you not doing this?
I don't know. I went to Tech knowing I guess I knew one person. 2 or 3 people from my high school went, but it was like very like weird that they went.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
You grew up in Texas, right?
I grew up in Frisco, about 30 miles from here.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It was just I did student recruiters. I liked the whole recruiting aspect. I wouldn't say it wasn't a popularity thing. It didn't hurt that, but everyone in the fraternity like always dogged on us if anybody tried out.
Yeah. It was like the most respected, unrespected thing you could do because it was like the fraternity would not have the status that it did if you were not in it, but at the same time, we're going to make fun of you the whole time.
Well, because they forgot the reason, or the mentality that we had was they forgot the reason they did it, and it was to gain us influence during Rush. And then they'd get into that little circle and then think that they were better than us, and they're like, no, you work for us. You're doing this for us.
Here's the thing.
But it wasn't a fraternity thing why I did it. I mean, I did it because it was a great time and I learned a lot through the experience.
You did it for us.
Well, look. All right, so on the outside looking in, I guess, seeing both angles of it, it's like, so Madison was your boy. He was in your circle, and then he created this other little circle where you weren't necessarily in it all the time. And it's like he created this whole other group of friends. And like, just like y'all were forced together, my Pledge Brothers were forced together. Like they were forced together because of the stuff that they went through.
It's definitely a cult.
Yeah. It's definitely a cult.
And we were okay. Like, do what you got to do, but remember the objective. Remember why you're there. Complete the mission. If we don't have 40 pledges from this, you were a failure.
Don't return home until it happens.
Yeah.
But it was a great time. It was fun.
I saw what it did to a lot of people psychologically, and it never was appealing to me because all I saw were people getting in emotional fights towards the end of the summer because they'd spend too much time together.
Yeah.
And then all these either like love affairs would start or these like little backstabbing things.
That was what especially like, because I would always spend every summer in Ruston too, and so I would end up running with the OSLs a little bit, and it seemed like.
But it would put people that would never like. I don't think me and Drew Jimerson would have crossed paths, and he's one of like my great friends and like MP, like all of them. I think eventually would have crossed paths, but I mean, got new pals.
Yeah.
18 new best friends, right?
Well, it's funny, a little unrelated, but like a lot of people think that Madison and I were always close friends. And Madison and I we like obviously hung out and stuff, but we weren't really close friends until after college. And when
after that one night.
Which night? Oh, yeah.
That one.
One of our guys just got way too drunk, and me and Ernie took care of him.
And we had
but I was in town randomly, and that Ernie texted me and was like, "Come hang out, watch a movie." And I was like, "Okay." So
and should we?
That sounds romantic.
We can't tell that story.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Well, we had a wild summer, and then after that, we kind of became closer. And then once we both moved to Dallas, that's when we really.
Yeah, I had to take care of my my overly drunk friend Nick Latendry one time in LSU. He ended up slipping and falling in the mud and just decided to roll around in it like a fucking pig at the time. And me and this other kid,
I wish it was that clean.
His name is Jacob. I really don't remember what his last name is, but he's another Ruston kid, and he knew Latendry. And so me and this Jacob guy like pick up Latendry from the LSU tailgate and like haul him like a mile and a half to the Sigma Nu house on the LSU campus. That was a bonding moment. Again, I don't know the kid's last name, but if I saw him, I'd be like, bro, my guy, you remember me?
Speaking of LSU, what was your opinion about
I've
LSU
never been to Baton
gear
Rouge. I've never been out in Baton Rouge or done any of that.
Really?
Yeah, that was the one time I've been Alexandria, Lafayette, like everywhere besides Baton Rouge.
So, growing up, I wanted to be my older brother. My older brother made a 32 in his ACT, also very outgoing, just kind of the whole package out of high school. And he ended up getting paid to go to Tech and that kind of deal. But he hated LSU. They didn't offer him a scholarship or a scholarship worth anything, really. And he was always under the impression that, they're all uppity and stuff like that. And I guess, you can probably have similar run-ins growing up in North Louisiana, and that most people that go to LSU or are LSU fans bought their T-shirts at Walmart. And, that tends to piss me off if I put in the work to support a school. Like, and what really aggravates me is I get it, they're a successful program and you want to root behind the winner or whatever, but like there are just so many people that I know personally that I went to high school with who never stepped foot on a college campus who are just like dick hard LSU fans. And like, yeah, bro, I know like 4 or 5 people that we went to high school with played football there, and that's cool, but like they're all gone, so like maybe find something else to talk about. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I did not I went into college with a negative mindset towards LSU. I had been to LSU football game, but I had gone with my dad, and my dad's very conservative, low-key kind of guy. So, we would go and see the band and the team walk in and that kind of stuff and get a good grasp of the vibe, I guess. But he did not really get the college side of it. Yeah. So freshman year, again, I was hanging out with Sigma News, and Paul Farmer asked me to come down to Baton Rouge with him one weekend, and it was like Mardi Gras break. And I'll tell the story if you want to hear the story, but it was basically that weekend changed my opinion of Baton Rouge and what it could be, just because I had a killer time. And we ended up going to New Orleans that weekend. The next couple of days, the day before Mardi Gras, we were there and went to a dubstep concert.
Oh, nice.
That's a whole other conversation for another day. But yeah, LSU, I mean, it's a push and pull thing. It's really like, I guess I hate those people who support them, who bought their T-shirts from Walmart.
Right.
But like, one of my absolute best friends in the whole world is the video manager for LSU football. So it's like, if I have an opportunity to go be a part of it, I wouldn't pass it up, I guess. Mm-hmm. Why do you bring it up?
No, I just think it's interesting, like, people's different opinions, because with me, like, they're kind of irrelevant in the sense of, like, so my oldest brother went to LSU, and so I have a connection there, and, like, during the fucking hate you, dude. During the national championship, I was obviously rooting for LSU, Louisiana's Louisiana.
Yeah.
But the thing I didn't understand, I think, like, so one of our tenets at Tech is loyalty. And we made a conscious decision to go to Louisiana Tech, so there's no reason you should wear any other university or college like apparel.
It's pretty deep.
While you're on our campus.
Yeah.
Like you're a bulldog.
Yeah.
A bulldog's fucking loyal.
Man, if I was like a foot taller, I would have talked shit to so many more people in life, because I mean, like on Tech campus, that would really fire me up.
Dude, yeah, and it's like people who like, and when Tech played LSU like a year ago, and there are people from Tech wearing LSU shirts.
Independence Bowl this year. I mean, LSU, like I don't know if you watched it on TV, but there was more purple than there was blue. It was.
Oh, was it really?
I mean, I'm being dramatic about that, but there were a lot of people there who clearly, were donors of some, to the Independence Bowl, or have every year tickets to the Independence Bowl or whatever, and. Yeah, there was a lot of old white dudes wearing LSU shirts.
Huh. And I also hate who do you root for? Well, who do you really root for? Dude, fuck that. We're Division I too. Like, I don't care. We've been top 25. Like, we can be contenders. The only reason we're not is because we choose not to be.
Yeah. Because we choose to
lose.
We choose to not support our own school.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I thought you were gonna say like we choose to suspend our players for a couple of games to where our coach will hang around.
No, Skip Holtz goes in like, no, hey, just
so
don't run it.
You can't,
look, this test we're gonna come up. It's gonna be negative. Okay?
Yeah.
It's gonna come negative. This
You're
one's
gonna
come
smoke
up,
right before the test.
Is that what you heard about that?
It was, yeah.
That they got caught or
Yeah, I
got
heard,
caught?
and then I started giving different versions of the story. So that's what I do. I amplified
From
it.
a reliable source, I heard that was the reason.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like the first time it happened.
Yeah. That's a whole other topic that we get into.
Yeah, dude, they put their body through so much. Let our boys smoke.
Yeah. Well, I think it's weird. Like, I mean, currently where we're at right now in Dallas County, it's decriminalized.
Right.
Outside of here, you will go to jail for a very long time, like in the state of Texas, like for anything of any weight. Something that has really been brought up, oddly enough, multiple times in the past couple weeks that I've been around is like medical marijuana in Louisiana. So medical marijuana has been legalized for like 2 or 3 years now, but not a single bit of medical marijuana has been distributed to any patient in the state of Louisiana because they can't get their stuff together. And it's just weird because like there are places set up and people have invested millions of dollars to get licenses and equipment and all this stuff, and
So they're just growing a bunch of
our state
weed and they can't sell it?
can't get it together. No, not necessarily growing marijuana, but buying storefront and buying all these licenses and the equipment that they're going to need to test it and handle it properly and transport it properly and stuff. And
I have a friend whose mom has a card, but she can't get anything in Louisiana, so she'll have to go to California or Colorado and gets it like stockpiles and then brings it back home.
Yeah.
To be able to like.
which
Word
is
stockpile.
still sketchy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's You ever watch Live PD?
Yes.
There's a
Gets
one
me
of the,
sweating. It's like cops.
so YouTube, they're putting out A&E, I guess, is putting out best of Texas 2019 on live PD on YouTube, and this one was like New Mexico or something, but it was this older lady driving a big RV, and apparently she was swerving all over the place. So the cop pulls her over. She's like, I just got in this thing. I don't really know how to drive it, blah, blah. And he's like, well, can I search it? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. She's like, I found a little pipe here. You have any marijuana? She's like, yeah, I just have a little bit of personal marijuana there in the front. It's in my purse. And she's like, okay, all right. Keeps searching, opens the back hatches. There's like 4 gigantic luggage bags full of, airlocked marijuana. And it's like, ma'am, what is this for? And she's like, I have a medical card. Like, well, ma'am, your medical card will not cover this amount. I'm sorry, you're gonna go to jail.
4 kilos.
Yeah, but it is it's sad that has to happen. That right. People have to sneak it around for those that they really need it.
It's sad we're still having this debate.
Yeah, well, I'm like very much under the impression that the legalization of marijuana in Louisiana will, curve the budget deficit problem, curve our education system. I really think it could like fully fund the education system just off tax dollars.
They need a lot of work.
Yeah. So, what can you talk about that? Like teaching in Louisiana compared to teaching in Texas, since you've done both of those?
Texas is better. I mean, I don't even know.
Let's
give
say,
it a number like 10 times.
How can you elaborate on that?
They let him hit his kids here.
No, I do. I've never hit a kid. The support from like administration and just the state is a lot better in Texas. Yeah. Curriculum-wise, it's a lot better. Louisiana, it seemed like everything was kind of just like thrown, and a lot of the kids. It's just a different atmosphere there.
For sure.
When they're like 49th or 50th out of the whole, which Texas isn't at the very top, but they're not at the very bottom.
Right.
The pay there is definitely not what it should be. I was getting paid close to right above half of what I make here.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was like when they offered me and they sent that offer letter, I was like, oh yeah, where do I sign?
Are you still continuing your education?
I finished. So I finished. I got my master's when I was still in Ruston in curriculum and instruction, and then I went back, got my principal certification, and I finished that in March.
But now you decided not necessarily to pursue that?
I mean, it just takes experience in the classroom.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to go into a
I guess you're not going to
role,
become a
being
principal at
4-year
28. Yeah.
Being a 4-year teacher and be like, okay, this is how you're supposed to do it when I don't even know myself again, because every year it changes.
Yeah.
There's always something new to focus on. So.
You had an experience that I think is pretty unique. You went to a football game in a fucking blizzard.
Oh, Kansas City Chiefs versus the Colts last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was awesome. Like me and my girlfriend just decided we're like.
My girlfriend and I.
My girl. It goes both ways. And then we had decided we're like, let's go next week. And so we called our parents up and we're like, we're going to sit up at the very top. And then he calls us and he's like, I got us tickets. And we're like, okay, cool. Like 7th row.
Oh, wow.
Lower bowl. Like when we were tailgating, there was like an inch of snow that formed on it. It was the craziest thing. And this is the first time I met her parents. So like I am freezing this whole game. And I was like, you cold? And I was like, no. I'm good. I'm fine. And I'm just like, I'm drinking. We were drinking to stay warm.
Yeah.
And I was wearing cowboy boots, which wasn't the best option.
Terrible decision.
The water is seeping in. And so I'm standing there. And once the game's done, everything, they win. It was awesome. And we go to a restaurant afterwards to have dinner. And I finally sit down and I'm like, now I'm not cold anymore. And they're like, what, you were cold? And I was like, I just met you guys. I wasn't going to say I'm freezing. I never thought I'd be at one of those games, but it was really cool to be there.
Yeah, for sure. You posted on Instagram and I was like, dude, that's epic.
Yeah, it was.
It's just good, especially coming from, the South.
Yeah, I'd maybe seen snow 10 times in my life, and it snowed, I think it was 6 to 8 inches that day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That is wild. So y'all were there whenever we got shut down for a week for snow.
And then it was sunny every day?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, or the one where it was snowing every day.
Right. Oh, it got snow, and
ice.
then they canceled it an extra day, and then it was super nice that day or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember a bunch of people snuck into the football field because that's where the most collection of snow. And
that was when we still had the hill.
Yeah, and so, but there were people who were messing around in their trucks outside. So the cops came for the people in the trucks, but everyone in the field was thought the cops were coming for us.
Yeah.
So we all start stampeding out, trying, and me and this one girl are the last people, and she falls, and she reaches out. She's like, Ernie, and I stop and I look at her, and then I look at the sirens, and I'm like, dude, sorry, I'll see you out if you make it. I just loved her. She reminds me to this day.
Oh, that's funny.
Reagan Bernard.
Oh, she's the one that tackled that dummy.
There's a. I'm sure she wouldn't mind if I share the story. They were walking back from the bar one night, and you know how they still had those tackle dummies up in the upper football fields.
Okay.
Well, so she gets
a 3 docks.
Yeah. She gets in a 3-point stance, completely misses the dummy, and goes straight into the bar, and just
I just remember that picture.
Oh man, that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah.
Y'all were talking about the Delta Chi house earlier. Didn't y'all have to live 2 to a room there for a little while? Or
No, they still do.
Max the house out for X amount of years?
24 people have to live in the house. Yeah. I lived there for 9 consecutive quarters.
I somehow finessed my way.
You did what? You lived there for 9
consecutive quarters.
That's
I stayed summer, so that's when it was orientation.
Okay.
So it was somewhere to live.
All right.
I somehow finessed my own room with a private bathroom.
Yeah.
And I was one of the youngest people in the house at the time, so I don't know how I got that.
In the summers, that's usually what happened. And then luckily I had a girlfriend at the time where I basically just lived with her.
Yeah.
Because living in that frat house was terrible.
Yeah. Summer after freshman year, I took summer school. And I was living on campus there by the Delta Chi house, and rent there is ridiculous on campus, so...
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to live there next year, but I don't want to drive back and forth to West Monroe because my parents hadn't moved to Ruston yet. And so I ended up living in the Sigma Nu house. Not not a Sigma Nu. I lived in Paul Farmer's room, and then I lived in UC on Austin E-Tier's couch, and would basically just wake up, go to class, and party till they had to go to class again. But me and Hunter Hall and Patricia Cage hung out like crazy that summer. We were inseparable. But that was whenever UC was super cool and you could go to the pool all the time.
Oh, they didn't have the bracelets at the UC pool.
Yeah.
Yep. That was a weird
Didn't
time.
someone make a music video in the UC pool?
Ooh.
I think Christian Stamps did.
Okay.
Like my
He's like a
fresh
big music producer now.
Yeah,
out here.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not. Who's
He's
that?
out here.
Christian Stamps.
Yeah,
I'm not
He
familiar
was a
with him.
pie cap, wasn't
Mhm.
he? Yeah, he was a pie cap.
Okay.
He's our
He's-
age.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's older.
I'll probably recognize him if I saw him.
So you mentioned that you had seen Madison's post on Instagram. What do you think, or is your perception of people that we went to school with? Because I think there's some people who are trying to make it big with like their own like, blogs or whatever, trying to become influencers, and there's people who hit the target, and there's people who miss
Yeah.
miserably.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you fall?
I'm not trying. Like, I think there's this misconception that because people always say, "Oh, you should start a YouTube channel. You should start a TikTok. You should."
Start a TikTok?
Yeah, no. The stories
future.
that I post are for like the people that I know.
Yeah.
For the people that I interact with or would want to interact with me, and it's like if it gets big, then it gets big naturally. But I'm not seeking that, and I think it's. You see the people who try and seek that, and then it like consumes them.
Mm-hmm.
Because even making things for just my friends is very like draining.
Yeah.
Because I still want to make sure that it's something good that people will enjoy. So I couldn't imagine trying to appease an entire like audience that
Yeah.
you don't know nothing about.
Yeah. I guess I try to toe the line there and like, yeah, I am trying to gain a following and blow up to a certain degree, but I want to keep it as organic as possible, and I want people to fall in love with me and who I am, and like
Right.
I just want to keep it real all the time. That's why I'm not afraid to like cuss and say my opinion, and like I just think like I think that we, as far as our generation, is like we grew up with the real world, watching the real world, and that's
Right.
not the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we're going more towards realism and not stuff that's just played out and hey guys, what's going on? Like it's just I toy with the idea of vlogging all the time, and I want to now that I'm about to start traveling. I think it'll be more appealing that way. But like that is an ultimate fear of mine, to like look at the camera and be like, oh, what's up, guys? Welcome back to YouTube. What's up, YouTube? It's like, it's just such a cliche
I'm
thing.
back.
Yeah. It's just such a cliche thing that I want to avoid that at all costs. And I have some inspiration there from a guy named Austin Augie. I've talked about him a good bit. If you follow this podcast, he's a big inspiration of mine. And he vlogged every day for like a year, and he made it cinematic. So it wasn't what 10-year-old kids wanted to watch. It wasn't what little kids wanted to watch. It was like serious. It was real life, and like this guy took it to the point where he was really showing his emotions on camera and like really letting us into his life. And it's interesting to watch him grow to the point that he's at now, where he has a couple 100,000 subscribers, but he's also like a model. Like he is like a professional model, and he makes his money that way now. He's a BMX guy. That's how he got popular. He was doing basically like Uber Eats deliveries on a BMX bike in Manhattan, and like doing tricks the whole way. Just put a GoPro on his chest, and like that was how his videos gained traction. And then he started vlogging, traveling around the world, and he has since deleted all of those daily vlogs.
Wow.
He kept a couple of like the big trips that he would take overseas and stuff like that, where he would make a big long film. But that is my ultimate goal, is to like be able to film my life, or honestly, like if I could just find somebody that already had a following and be their camera guy, and like just like produce content for them to where I wasn't in front of the camera all the time, and I could just come and do this podcast once a week whenever I wanted to or whatever. Or even if that opportunity got eliminated, but I was still getting paid to do what I like to do. I think that's the ultimate goal. But yeah, I don't want to be corny, and I think as long as I'm not, it'll continue to be that way.
Well, what I can say from what I've seen, like from your journey so far, is that it is very genuine, and there is a lot of truth in what you do.
Yeah.
So I don't think that you will come off corny, because you are finding this passion, and you just want to do it because you love it, not because you want to become like the next Dobrik Farker, whoever that dude is.
David Dobrik.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that dude. So.
Yeah, there's a big push and pull there because I do not know how to make it on YouTube and not have clickbait titles.
Right.
Like because I'm putting out content.
Interview with a real life possum.
Yeah, exactly.
That please make that this episode the possum and raccoon.
And it's just I don't know. I know that I have to work harder to like to figure out my style and my deal and.
What number episode is this?
This will be 48.
Nice, that's a good number.
So, the goal was to do 52, but between selling the house and I had a couple people want to reschedule and cancel on me last minute and that kind of stuff.
Should have just done your realtor.
So that's 48 more than one day you would have thought you would have done.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It is just like
we didn't even make it to 10.
Yeah, we didn't make it to 5.
a lot of
Like
it
8.
is getting out of my comfort zone. A lot of it is hitting people up on Instagram and being willing to like.
How many times do you get rejected?
All right, y'all know Marlon Watts. Marlon Watts. He's a part of the clothing company out of Ruston, World and Vision.
Oh yeah.
World the Jesus tees.
Yeah.
Colorful.
Oh, the Post Malone one.
Yeah,
I wore that in Deep Element. Someone goes, "Oh, dude, dope. Is that Post?" I said, "No, it's Jesus."
So like that dude has like 81,000 followers on Twitter.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that brand shot off.
yeah, so I sent him like a big long paragraph like, "Hey bro, just quit my job, sold my house, like pursuing my dreams," and most people are open to that. Well, I don't even know if he read it, but I got nothing back.
Yeah.
But like, so I guess what I look for now is like people that I'm following on Instagram that have like less than 5,000 followers. There's a dude who I know who lives in Colorado who I've only met through Instagram. He's a Deadhead. He's a Grateful Dead guy. Creates Dead T-shirts, and like last summer quit his job to go on tour, follow Dead and Company around, and sell T-shirts in the parking lot.
So he's just like on Shakedown Street every
but he's
clip.
like a really intelligent individual.
Right on.
And but yeah, there is this
Is
whole.
he making enough money? I mean, he's got to be able to sustain that.
Well, he's like he's like an editor for like contracts for whatever business that he works for, and now I think he works for WeWork.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
In Denver or Boulder. But anyway, I thought I was going up there this summer, and I reached out to him and was like, "Hey, man, would you want to?" He was just coming off a Dead tour, and I was like, "Hey, would you want to like
Got another one.
talk about your experience on tour?" And like, he's a big Toyota guy and a big off-road guy. I was like, "We can talk about all kinds of stuff," and he's like, "Yeah, that's cool. Hit me up," and we just kind of left it at that. Well, I ended up hitting him up and was like, "Hey, man, not gonna make it, blah blah." So I reached out to him yesterday and was like, "Hey, dude, I'm coming up. Like, let's try to set something up." And like immediately followed me, liked like 5 of my pictures, and was like, "Yeah, bro, let's do it. Like, let's make it happen. Like, I'm excited about this." And I was like, "Yes!" Like,
Yeah.
And it's just like little adrenaline rushes like that like
Yeah.
keep me going and like keep me motivated to keep doing things. And I have a list in my phone of people that I want to interview. Half of them live in Louisiana, but there's still like. It keeps me motivated to where, like, all right, if you do go back there, reach out to this person and reach out to that person. And I don't know. It just, I got to keep it rolling.
Yeah.
So
You're doing good.
keep it rolling. Keep penetrating new audiences.
Yeah.
All right. So both of y'all have lived in the DFW area for a little while now.
Mm-hmm.
What do you enjoy most about this area? What do you dislike, enjoy, and dislike, enjoy? You know what I'm saying?
I'm close to home, so that's the main reason.
Yeah.
I like living here. It's close to home.
Yeah.
Parents just right down the road. I mean, the traffic's the only terrible thing.
And he's like, "There's a cheaper airport here."
Yeah, no, for real. Cheaper airport. And I'm also closer to home in the sense of like there's a lot of people here that like from tech, and so I don't feel as lonely as I would at like another big city. And also Shreveport's not that far away, so if I need to be there, I can be there quickly. But I mean, Dallas is a metropolis. You know, anything you need or want, it's here.
Yep.
The summers, yeah, they suck, but I mean, global warming, it's going to suck everywhere. So,
True.
I don't know. I think Dallas is a place where people like to complain and say it's boring, but I think it's just because it has boring people.
Yeah.
I think Dallas can be a really fun place if you allow yourself to explore it.
Yeah.
It's fun's not going to come to you. And I think people will try to move to places. Like I remember growing up, the place to go was New York, and a lot of people would move to New York, and then they wouldn't go outside of their comfort zone, and so they'd come back home.
Mm-hmm.
And then they realized the problem wasn't their city, the problem was them.
For sure.
So I think Dallas is a tight-ass place, and I highly recommend it.
Fair enough. I don't know. Just trying to think of stuff to talk about here. We were talking about basically prank wars between Delta Chi and Sigma Nu earlier. I mean, the only thing that I ever really recall was one of our guys came down and legitimately stole something from y'all, and he ended up going to jail or going to court over it.
Whoa, we did?
Yeah, he stole a banner. It was shortly after Rush. Stole a banner out of the.
Oh, it was the retractable one.
Yeah.
I didn't know what happened. I thought we just lost the thing.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
I didn't know.
It got stolen. And
They took him to court?
it was on camera. Yeah, he had to pay some fines and stuff.
Oh, wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got
But
him.
that was I'm about to say that was the only person that I know that really got in trouble for anything. There was always a volleyball net war.
Yeah.
Everybody was always
Cutting down the net.
cutting volleyball nets.
I think someone ran over our PVC pipe for our volleyball court.
That was
and,
one of our
crushed it.
guys.
Oh, those are one of our
That
guys.
sounds like
There's
you
a lot
gotta
of
be
things
super malicious to drive back there.
There's a lot of things that would happen that we caused that I think we would just blame.
We would blame it on people. We'd be like, it was definitely them.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's Sigma Nu all the way.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a guy that I know that we'll say had relations with a lady on the 50-yard line of the football field and in the Delta Chi house at the same night. And he was a Sigma Nu.
Oh.
I'll tell y'all his name after the podcast. But
I think I know who it is.
that's always a good story
I think
to bring up.
one of the years y'all cheated in one Greek week. It led to the greatest party I'd ever been to.
God. There was 400 or 500 people at our house.
At y'all's
Because
Yeah.
I reached out
y'all
to
was through the winter party, which
Right.
we were obviously never a part of.
I reached out to some other fraternities. I was like, you know what? Why don't we just throw a big party? And everyone at first was like, Ernie, that's a terrible idea. They're gonna break our shit. I was like, so what if they do? Whatever. And so we're waiting, and I told them hey, let's meet 8:00. And 8:00 comes by, and it's 8:15. No one shows up, and I was like, oh, I knew it was a bad idea. All of a sudden, PyCap shows up with trucks of beer. AGR comes in.
Where's the fridges? And we're like,
Oh yeah, it was the second year, third year that we won in a row.
Yeah.
And so everybody was like,
Yeah,
"Screw
we
you
did
guys!"
it.
We're having our own party. Yeah. Yeah, I do recall that.
That was the loudest "I'm a bastard" I've ever heard.
Yeah,
Man.
it was a lot.
That was it wasn't nearly as fun whenever the Pikes got a new house. Because they didn't sing that song to us anymore. They would used to get on the balcony and sing that to us. I was at bid day my freshman year whenever I was not a pledge or a Sigma Nu. And I remember that happening. And I was just like, what on earth have I gotten myself into? These guys really hate y'all. And then it turned out not to be so much. Well, we've been going for an hour and a half now. So
That's a.
um,
It was whenever me and Ernie recorded, it'd be 20 minutes. You're like, oh wow.
Oh man, what else?
What do we talk about?
I've always thought that in these scenarios, I think 3 people is the golden number.
yeah, I
You
mean,
can feed off each other.
yeah, it is good. I really have enjoyed this for sure. And I really haven't put myself in an opportunity to have multiple people on at the same time. So
It's been fun.
yeah, no doubt. I've definitely enjoyed it. I have another question. So at one point you had champagne with Ernie, you just had your own podcast.
Oh yeah.
That was when we were still in Ruston.
What's funny is I had champagne with Ernie that was essentially there's this podcast called the Sunday Scaries podcast that I listen to, and I didn't realize that essentially I was doing that podcast before I discovered this one. But
You had to have run into some copyright issues too. You were playing music the whole time.
Oh yeah, I was playing like music in the background.
It'd be like some kind of instrumental. And one time somebody listened to it I was with, and they were like, "Wait, is this not copyright? That's longer than that's longer than like 30 seconds."
At the time though, I realized that for our friends, like during that time and our age, like it wasn't really hitting because it was too. Yeah. Not mature, but it was different than what they were wanting and expecting.
Yeah.
Because I dealt a lot with like arts and like culture and like cooking and things like that. Which now I feel that if I brought it back, it'd be more, sought out and like listened to.
Yeah.
But now it's just like the time.
Yeah, it was one of those things that it caught my attention because like.
Nobody was doing it.
Yeah, that was the thing. You were creating something, regardless of what it was. Like, you, a frat boy. I mean, because we were living in that mindset at that point in time.
Right.
Like, we're stepping out of your comfort zone and creating something.
Yeah, nobody drank champagne.
And, and it was like, all right, like, let's check this out. What is this thing? And, I talk about, and there's a culmination of things that like led up to starting this podcast, but like that was definitely a part of it, just to to see. Well, I mean,
heart
like
just melted.
Yeah, I know.
Like
he's gonna be crying tonight.
Like you do that, and then I see Kendrick Jones. Kendrick Jones. Like he started his own podcast called the Dreamer Collective, and it was more of a faith-based podcast type thing, and it was really him that like I said, it was a culmination of things that like built up to that, but like. I saw that he was doing that, and he was in Ruston, and I was like, "There's absolutely no reason why I can't do this."
Right.
So
I think it was like that leap of faith where I sat down one day and I was like, "What happens if I just hit record?"
Yeah.
And then I just did it, and then I got sucked in, and unfortunately I left it, and I actually thought about bringing back Champagne with Ernie.
I mean, it's your own deal. You can do it whenever you want to.
Because I found that co-hosts are sometimes unreliable.
And that that was so I bought a camera and was like pursuing videography, and it got to the point where it was like, all right, I'm waiting on events to happen.
Yeah.
And like I can't just sit there
You
around
use
and
it now.
wait on things to happen. So like now, this is all relatively in my control, and like I can schedule it out, that kind of deal. So, but yeah, I really like you, Ernie. You're a very well-rounded individual.
Thank you.
And I mean, it's like I never know what I'm gonna get out of your Instagram story, and like I absolutely love that. Like I could not understand a single, one when you're just speaking Spanish the whole time and writing in Spanish. That shit aggravates the fuck out of me. I'm like,
I can't read.
Man, I really want to know what he's talking about right now. It's always like the sunset, or it's real dark, and it's like, man, he's spitting some game here or dropping some serious knowledge, and I can't even understand.
How many of your followers think speak Spanish?
That was another question I had.
Like maybe 10%. But the thing is, so I'm just like everyone else, where there's certain times where I'm posting something for someone to see.
Yeah.
And
Just
lately,
one person?
yeah,
I mean, I watch all your stuff, buddy.
like recently I kind of met someone, and I was like
Hey, I want to talk about your trip.
Okay.
Yeah. That sounds like you. That was another Instagram thing that I saw that looked like just all around an incredible culmination of events.
Yeah, it was nuts. I went to Chile. So the goal was to get to Easter Island, which Chile owns, but it's out in the middle of the ocean. But Santiago right now, or Chile, the entire country is going through like a period of civil unrest, of protests against the government, and the government's using like very aggressive tactics against the protesters. Tanks, tear gas, shooting rubber bullets like at their eyes, and so it's
their eyes.
Yeah.
What are these, snipers?
No. Well, so essentially,
bullets?
A lot of people, like I forget the number, but a lot of people had lost one or two eyes since the protests have started, and they did a study where on average you'd have to shoot 118 times to get someone right on the eye. So the only way that many people lost their eyes is because they were giving direct orders to shoot at the eyes. So
That's nuts.
So it was like being down there, and I was posting stories of like, these marches and protests where like you watch it a couple of days, but then once you get to a certain point where you're like,
you joined one, didn't you?
yeah, I started walking, and I was like, dude, I'm with these people, and like I can't just watch. Like I want to be part of this. And so
that would terrify me.
when I came back,
Just saying.
I mean, it was
I would be
like
shaking.
it was something that I saw before Ernie went down there, and was like, clearly there's a gigantic movement happening. There's clearly hundreds of thousands of people in the streets. Like something serious is going on there, and like there is this like travel journalism thing that I have in my soul somewhere where it's like, I want to be in the fight. Like I want to be in the war zone and like documenting that. Like there's something that excites me about that. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I don't have a dog or a girlfriend or anything to like, if I died, it'd just like tell my friends to take my stuff, But yeah, it was very exciting to see that one, you were there and you weren't, and not that I would expect you to, but you weren't ignoring what was going on there, and you were using what you had to share it as well. Continue on.
And like when I came back, I mean, I went to Easter Island, and Easter Island was cool, seeing all the culture and the giant heads and stuff. But it was hard to enjoy that aspect because I went to Santiago, Easter Island, and then back to Santiago. And while I was at Easter Island, all I could think about was Santiago.
Yeah.
So then I went back, and then finally when I came back home, like none of the problems that I left having, I consider problems anymore. And it completely changed my perspective. And like I still itch. Like every day I follow all these news outlets keeping up with what's going on down there. Don't ever sneeze when I'm talking again.
A bless you would have sufficed.
And so it's like I still have this concern. I feel very connected to Chile, and it's like I feel like I'm not done.
Yeah.
You got to go back and get that dog.
Yeah, there's a dog that I befriended that everyone wants me to go back and. Dog's my background, but I was very fortunate to be able to see it. Like, I hate that I saw it in that state, but I'm fortunate to be able to like have witnessed it, because in today's day and age, you don't know what's real, what's exaggerated, what's not being presented. And
Right.
from what I saw, that it wasn't, at least to us, no one knew that was going on, and it had already been going on for 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I also wanted to share as much as I could, because I want to see, like, look at what's going on at the world, and we have no idea.
But dude, you like got in the thick of it there for a little while. Like you were like in a cab or something at one point, and they were like being surrounded by protesters and stuff.
So the
I'm telling
protesters,
you, I'd be terrified.
yeah,
Yeah.
that did look a little sketchy.
There would have been little tears.
Well,
Real tears.
real tears.
well, the protesters would use the cars because they knew that like the cars weren't involved, so the, lack of a better term, the National Guard wouldn't hit the cars. So they would use us, like they'd attack and then they'd retreat, and so then the cars would be there. But like there's a certain point where like there's rocks being thrown, there's the water being blasted, so like, things could get ugly very quickly.
Tears.
Luckily nothing, but it was very odd. Like once 5 o'clock rolled around, like they'd start releasing the tear gas, and it'd be hard to breathe, it'd all be itchy, it'd be scratchy, and
So what'd you do?
you just lived with it, you just,
Keep eating, drinking, breathing.
yeah.
Keep having
So,
champagne
but
learning.
you had a connection down there.
So yeah, it's funny. About 12 years ago, I got a Facebook message from a girl asking if I was like in Ernesto. I was in her class, and I said no, like I'm not the guy you're looking for. And she's like, oh yeah.
Are you talking about business law?
And she ended up being from Chile, and we remained friends. And like for years, we like kind of just connected. We ended up still talking. And about 5 years ago was when the first time I went to Chile, and I was like, hey, I'm going to South America, and I'm going to be in Santiago for a couple of days. And I thought, if you'd like to meet up. And I thought she was going to be like, no, it's a weirdo. Like, I don't know who you are. Like, yeah, we're Facebook friends. But like,
Right.
but she at the time, she's a teacher, but she was also studying like tourism. So she's like, yeah, I'd love to do that.
Studying tourism?
Yeah, tourism is a thing that people study.
I didn't know that.
It's a very large industry
Yeah.
around the world.
Well, I didn't know.
I'm sorry.
See how easy it is?
That was my one. Waited till the end.
So she meets up, and she like takes me around Santiago, and it's so cool, and like we connected, and so it was awesome to meet her. And then now I knew that I was going to go to Easter Island, and I asked her, like, hey, can we see each other again? And she was like, hey.
No.
You know. Well, essentially, she was like, look, I'm really, because it was, like, the end of the semester for them because it's, like, flipped. And she's also like, there's a lot of things going on, but, like, if I can, sure. And so once I got there, I told her the actual dates and the times I was there. And she was like, yeah, let's link up. And so we met. And the first time we had met, we were still younger and just kind of very different. But now as, like, adults with, like, very firm ideas and what we believe, we really connected and we really aligned.
Yeah.
And so it's so cool to know, like, yeah, we've been internet friends for 12 years, but I feel like more connected to her than I do like some people I've known, you know, every day.
For sure.
So
Power of social media.
yeah.
So you went there alone?
No, so
None of his travels are alone.
Well, see, that was my question.
He
Like,
makes him look like
you
they're
travel alone? Like,
No, he took me to Russia.
So
that's another thing you did. That had to be epic. Go to the freaking World Cup.
that was nuts. What I'll do is my dad and I have a little sister that lives in Mexico, and so since we don't spend time with each other, every other year we'll try to travel somewhere together. And what I'll do, I'll either like go before them or like stay a little after them, so that way I can get that bug of traveling on my own alone.
Yeah,
and then I'll meet up with them at a certain point.
Cool.
So like for the majority of the trip, we were together.
That's awesome.
Yep.
You have anything else planned for travel?
So far, no. Like 2020 is filled with like
We're going to
weddings
San Antonio.
and personal things. Yeah, we're going to San Antonio next month. So
If you see my hat in the Riverwalk, let me know. It's red.
You lost it?
Yeah, I went there on my 21st birthday. It was also my brother's bachelor trip.
oh shit.
I was the youngest one, 6 or 7 years, and basically we were all drinking all day. And it was the same day that Louisiana Tech lost to UTSA, and Auburn ran the kickback on
the Iron Bowl.
Alabama. Yeah. And my 21st birthday. So, yeah, we had been drinking throughout the day, and we went out on the Riverwalk that night after some Hooters on the Riverwalk. And I don't know, I got in an argument with one of my brother's friends, and at the time I was really like dick hard about saying, do you like your life? Because I'll end it. and so, of course, this guy's like a good foot and a half taller than me, and I'm like staring at his nipples like, you like your life? Because I'll end it. He's like, you know, just like, oh, all right. Okay. Thanks, bro. And, yeah, I went right in the river and never to be seen from again. And it was my favorite hat at the time. But, yeah, we ended up going to a little club after that, and I threw up in the urinal, and the bathroom attendant asked me to leave. One of my brother's friends was in there, and he was like, it's all good, man. He flushed it. It's good. It's gone. It's done. It's over. And he's like, no, he must leave. He's a very, very stern Mexican man.
That's funny.
And, yeah, I got a taxi home. But that was my 21st birthday. So if you're under 21, don't go on your brother's bachelor trip for your 21st birthday, because no one will care if it's your 21st birthday. All right, guys. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there. We're almost 2 hours in. So appreciate you guys.
Yeah, no, thanks for having us.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. And honestly, I hope we can do it again at some point. I know I'll be traveling around for a little while, but I'll be back. So
yeah, next up is to have you on our podcast.
Yeah, I'd love to, and I look forward to what you guys are gonna come up with.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess tell the people where to follow y'all if you want to. If not,
yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Champagne Ernie.
And it's Madison Bottoms on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah.
1D, not two.
There you go. There you go. Well, yeah, appreciate you guys, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Sweet.